First tonight to a problem that all levels of government acknowledge, but which is yet to see a permanent solution. In 2006, state and federal governments recognised a devastating shortfall in disability care that had resulted in more than 7,500 young people living in aged care. A 5-year program to find accommodation solutions helped some, but when the funding ran out, many of Australia's disabled were still living old lives. And while the National Insurance Scheme offers hope in the future, families say something needs to be done now. Kathy McLeish has this report, the second in our series on disability and mental health in our community.
The simple joy of watching the footy with his sister is a huge achievement for Greg Hill. But life wasn't always like this.
He loved his sport, loved his business, loved his family and was always out doing things.
At 45, he suffered a massive stroke that left him needing high care. With nothing suitable available, residential aged care was the only option.
Aged care has its place and it does a great job for people who are aged, but brain injury or people who end up there when they're young, there's no stimulation, there's no way for him to have improved. I don't think that Greg... I can't say for sure that he wouldn't be here, but he wouldn't be here as we know him now. There is absolutely no way, because you need stimulation to improve, and I think that's really the difference.
After a desperate search, his family found supported accommodation for him at these Young Care and Wesley Mission apartments.
Greg has absolutely flourished here. You know, he gets to participate in life and not just waste away, and I think that's the most important thing. You know, he goes to the rugby, they go out for coffees, he goes to the movies, they go on holidays. It's just fantastic. Greg has improved, and any of the staff here and the staff that have been here since the beginning, and Greg's been here since the beginning, they can't believe how much he's improved. They do crosswords. Greg will yell out the answers.
Alison Bailey's family are now fighting a similar battle. She survived a brain tumour that left her disabled. Then last year she suffered a stroke. Her sister Deborah Bailey is a doctor and knows Alison needs intensive therapy, but aged care is the only option.
It's been very stressful for us because we obviously wanted to keep her in a family environment, but nobody really has the kind of facilities to be able to support someone who needs 2 or 3 people to help stand and to feed and do all those things on a 24-hour basis. And yet we could see that going into aged care, which is for elderly people, has been a step backwards. She's become very, very withdrawn. We all get very depressed and sad when we see someone who is very lively and very interested becoming so withdrawn. But now it's hard for her even to wake up when we come by, and we just see this tremendous indrawing into a shell, a world of our own.
The National Disability Insurance Scheme should eventually help, but it will take years to flow through.
It could be 6 years before that's rolled out. What will that mean to Alison?
My mother's here, and I don't really want to say this in front of her, but I don't think Alison will make it. And the deterioration we've seen in the last 12 months has been quite marked. Alison's drifted off now, but she would never have done this a year ago. She would have been very interested in everything that went on.
The main thing is the level of detail. I mean, they really are beautiful buildings.
A 5-year, $240 million federal and state government-funded program known as IPRAC helped about 500 young people out of aged care. It included building new types of supported accommodation, like these apartments built and run by Young Care in the Wesley Mission. Julia Agostinelli has multiple sclerosis. She was in her mid-30s when, after a series of falls in her home, her doctors delivered bad news.
And they said, oh, there's no possibility that you can go back and live alone, which absolutely made my world collapse, because I thought, well, where do you think I should go? And there were no options.
She was in aged care for 4 years.
I felt I had arrived at a destination well and truly before my time, and the people I was living with were at the end of their lives. And I thought, oh, surely I'm not at the end of my life now. Yeah, it really scared me.
Now she's living a young life.
So you have a chance to, create a lifestyle again, and you can come home and, yes, it's been a regular day, and I have access to the outside.
Do you feel like you've won the golden ticket being here, finding this?
Yeah, I drew it, and maybe it took me a long time to collect my prize.
All right, Paul, would you like to sit at the table?
When the IPRAC program finished in 2011, thousands of young people had been left behind in residential aged care. Young Care's Anna Cox says national disability funding has to pick up where the program left off.
At the moment, the system just simply is not there. There's not a system, there's not funding. The whole infrastructure that you'd need to deliver specialist housing for at least 7,500 young Australians is simply not in place. The worst case scenario is on 1st of July 2020, we'll wake up, 7,500 people wake up in aged care across Australia. Finally, they'll have a cheque in their pocket that will pay for their care somewhere else. They go to leave, there's nowhere else to go.
She says expertise in supported accommodation solutions has already been developed under IPRAC.
This is the sort of thing we could pick up and run with pretty quickly. Now is definitely the time to turn to this issue of housing, finding that alternative place for young people to call home, so as we make sure that when we do get to full national implementation, we've got all the different things in place that we need to actually get people out of aged care and into somewhere they can call home.
We have to do it. We have no choice but to address the issue.
The Queensland Government says the state is already working with the sector, but the NDIS or DisabilityCare Australia funding formula needs to be fine-tuned.
Currently, most accommodation supports or accommodation options are block funded. Under DisabilityCare, which is really about individualised funding and consumer choice and control, that becomes a little blurry then on how these particular homes are funded. It's something DisabilityCare needs to be looking at.
The federal government says DisabilityCare Australia is consulting with government, community and private housing providers to develop solutions. Families and advocates say they need to get cracking.
Even though 5 or 6 years is a long time in the life of a young person living in aged care, it's not a long time to design and to launch and to get started with a major building program, which is exactly what we need to really solve the problem of young people living in aged care.